Hello, everyone. I am Dr. TaeJeong Park, and I'm working at Seoul Cyber University in South Korea. Today, I'm going to tell you about the topic, empirical adjustment of ESG disclosures for evaluating the social service agencies in South Korea. Well, I divided my talk into the 5 parts from the introduction to implication. Let's start with the first one. The first one is concept. What is ESG? Actually, ESG is based on the sustainability. If that is so, what is sustainability? What do we have to do to make our community sustainable? You may see the answers. We have to consider a more balanced use of all natural resources. We have to prevent climate change. We consider to protect human rights. Also, we have to build a fair society and sustainable community. And we have to encourage democratic governance. Those kinds of activities are a sustainability. So if ESG is based on the sustainability, the ESG concept is from the sustainability. Therefore, ESG means using environmental, social, and governance factors to evaluate companies, sometimes organizations, on how far advanced they are with sustainability. Well, let's find out the history of ESG. You may know ESG is a not old one, not a long history. It started in 1987. UNEP, WCED, they developed a well-known report, Our Common Future. At that report, sustainability was defined. Sustainability means it at that level meet the needs of present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And then it has changed in the last 20 years. Well, in 2004, UN Global Compact, the term ESG was widely used first. And then 2006, UNPRI, they said all investors can incorporate ESG issue into their decision-making and ownership practice, and so better align their objectives with those of society at large. Yes, they focused on ESG officially. Recently, for example, South Korea exchanges launched an integrated environmental, social, and governance information platform. All kinds of big company have to announce their outcomes or performance related to ESG every year from 2025. Well, if that is so, ESG is a huge, new kinds of trend and paradigm. Well, let's see ESG pillars and component. There are 3 pillars: environmental pillar, social, and governance pillar. Environment pillar, each pillar, each factor have a various kind of components. For example, there are biodiversity loss, climate change, greenhouse gas emissions. Like these components, there are in environment factor. And second, the social factor, there are several components like community development, human rights, access to health care, employment right, or community partnership. And the third pillar, governance factor, there are bribery corruptions, issue of bribery corruption and ethics in business, and implications of business strategy on sustainability issue. Well, if that is so, let me deeply focus on the relationship between ESG and social service organization. Recently, a non-profit social service providers in Korea regard ESG as a tool to enhance their own vision or goal. The reason are There are three reasons, actually. The first one is most Korean service providers are based on the formal subsidies from the government. So they have already legal obligations to report their finance and performance. It means their outcomes. So it is another type of, actually, I mean, the Korean social service organization is another type of nonprofit business related to public interest. And second one, human development and intergenerational equity are areas in which social workers have done both practical and theoretical work. In other words, it is our activity, it is our professional areas, the human development and intergenerational equity. And the last one is, in general, problem-solving methods in social work are not only compatible with ecological approaches to sustainability, but also provide much needed sensitivity to human rights concern. Well, the thing is spread like this. The evaluation system for social service organization was introduced 1998 in South Korea. Since then, after that, Minister of Health and Welfare and each governor have been required to evaluate organization every 3 years. The purpose of evaluation is related to quality control in agency, and furthermore, enhancement of human rights and their goals. Well, in other words, it is very similar to meaning of ESG. I mean, the value of ESG is already reflected in current evaluation. So I mainly focused on the evaluation indicators of general service facilities in Seoul, and I explored the possibilities of reflecting ESG in current evaluation indicators. Well, let's find out our findings. You may see the current evaluation indicators in your left side, and you'll see ESG factors, reclassified factors in your right side. There are three sections in our indicators. The first one is general management. Second one is outcome and performance on community organizing. And the final one is program implementation. Let's move on the first section. There are three divisions: the facility management, human resource management, and finance management. It is all kinds of activity I relate to general management, but in each division has each a ESG meaning or ESG value. Let's see the first one by one. The first one, facility management and safe control. Actually, safety management and eco-friendly activities are included. There are two indicators: safety control and facility management. So with these indicators is related to environmental ESG factor. The second division, human resource management, it means a work standard and to prevent discrimination or to consider a fair hiring practice and so on. So there are three indicators: fair hiring practice, continuous employment, and the fringe benefit like a welfare benefit. Well, you may already know these kind of indicators is really a kind of a social factor in ESG. And final one, finance management. There are three indicators: credibility in accounting, program expense ratio, a donation ratio. Those kind of indicators are fully related to governance. Well, and the second section, outcomes and performance on community organizing. It is related to community, yes. So there are three divisions: understanding community environment and employee expertise management and enhance of human right. Actually, the first one, in understanding community development and developing partnership, there are indicators, three indicators. Whole indicators are fully engaged in community issues like identify community issue, network participation, and also there are they consider that the community skinship, the community resources, and so on. So these indicators is related to social factor in ESG. And second division, employee expertise management, is related to two kinds of ESG factor. Actually, education and training is related to employee education, employee training. So it can be said as a social factor in ESG. But another two indicators, CEO performance, manager performance, is a activity to manage their organization or facility. So it is related to governance factor. The final one, enhancement of human life, is fully considered as ESG factor. I mean, yeah, it can be equal to ESG factor, yet it is related to social value in ESG factor. The final one, the program implementation, there are three divisions: service procedure, case management, and evaluation. It can be said a program or service is our service. Yes, it focused on our service. Service procedure, there are one indicators, a policy on program. It is related in governance because the policies on program means a rule or a manual, a kind of guideline to what I said to do their own services or program. So it is a activity like a governance. And case management, there are two indicators: support and implementation system on case management. It is a kind of social issue. And the final one, program evaluation, is activity related to governance. So the evaluation is related to governance pillar in ESG. Well, to conclusion, as I reclassified in the earlier, there are three ESG factors in our current indicator. I mean, if we reclassify our indicator as in those of ESG pillars, the first one, there are two indicators in environmental factor, and there are seven indicators in governance pillar, and finally there are 12 indicators in social sector. So it might be said, I can say ESG factor is related to evaluation of indicators. The first, social factor, include human rights and more routine issue like adherence to workplace health and safety are already used as key component on the indicators and found in almost every section. This means our current indicators is deeply related to ESG factor, especially a social factor. The second, the governance factor, is mainly relevant to the finance management. But the problem is, however, the environment factor in ESG is hardly related to current indicator. As you see earlier, there are only two indicators related to environmental pillar. So I have to say they cannot be regarded as enough. Well, the importance of ecological social work or sustainable social services is now widely discussed in the social work field. It is a huge trend. A lot of social service organizations or providers adopt new guidelines for general management based on the value of sustainable development. Yes, it is right, it is true. But in these circumstances, I have to suggest environmental element should be actively reflected in current indicators. Yes, while ESG indicators for social work or social service organizations are, yes, right, it is still equivocal and also need to be developed. It is confused, but I have to say it is important to note that there have been advancement. Well, specific indicators already reflect ESG value. Actually, 12, like a social factor, 12 indicators already reflect a social factor in ESG value. Well, there is a trend toward combining ESG factors and framework for evaluating service organizations. It is true, it is a trend in social work field in South Korea. Then I have to summarize the one sentence. It will be necessary to develop balanced indicators for each ESG factor. Well, this is my whole presentation. Thank you for your listening. If you have any question about my presentation and my abstract, feel free to contact me. And yeah, you can see my email address. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.